Well, good morning, everyone. It's Annie with Manor Farms Homestead. We're out in the raised bed garden area this morning, and I just wanted to give you a quick tour around, show you what's going on. It's January 25th, and we're getting ready to prep a lot of stuff for our spring and summer garden at this point. A lot of stuff's going to be going into seed trays indoors because we will still get some cold weather through here. But these beds need to be ready to go. We'll be getting potatoes in the ground in about a week. And mainly at this point, I really just need to kind of consolidate some of my onions that are out here. In a previous video, I talked to you about how we lost a good portion of our onions due to the really cold weather. So I have just a few onions in multiple beds at this point, and they're not very big, so I'm planning to just transplant all of the small onions into one or maybe two beds, depending on how many I have, so that I can free up some beds to use for potatoes. This bed had some cabbage, it's just been turned over. This was onions, where only a few of them have survived. Same for this bed here. These two beds I put ground cover in for the winter. We've got hairy vetch and some winter peas, so I'm just letting that go until probably mid-February when we'll till it into the ground. We're going to let it put as much nitrogen as it can into the ground right now. This is a bed that I've planted carrots in. A little bit of kale right there in the background. This is garlic, more garlic. I believe those are some radishes coming up in there. All of these beds through here have spring, cool weather, salad type crops in. So some of it has not started coming up yet. The radishes always come up first, so through there you can see some radishes coming up. So that's what's going on in the main raised bed garden. All right, we're back inside now, so let's show you what we've got going on here in the kitchen in preparation for our spring and summer garden. Now, early January, a lot of people don't have spring fever yet, but this is the time to start getting everything ready so that you don't miss those key opportunities to get your seeds started, get your potatoes cut up and ready to seal off to get in the ground. It's time to start. Sweet potato starts. So a lot of stuff needs to be going on in January if you're in the southeast gardening. So here we have at the table seed packets, and you want to go through your seed packets in probably December to make sure you have everything that you're going to need for prepping your spring garden. Now's a good time just to double check and make sure you have everything ready. It's a good time to draw out a schematic of how your garden is set up and what you're going to plant where. So let's start over here. This is where I'm working on my potting mix. I've got a little bit of garden soil here that we're going to use for sweet potatoes. What I use for starting my seeds in is a mixture of seed starting potting mix and peat moss. And I just mix this together, and then it goes into my little seed trays. So you can put these into specific plastic containers or something like this, just a cardboard box. This is waxed so it won't leak as bad with the watering process. I've got sweet potatoes here that we're going to get set up to start making little sweet potato starts. I've got some Irish cobbler potatoes from this past fall that I grew in my garden from the actual potatoes that I grew in the spring. We've got some certified seed potatoes as well. I've got Kennebec and Yukon Gold. So we're going to be getting those cut up and allowing them to seal off. Now what we're going to be starting with today, I have a few flowers for one area in the garden, but I have all of my tomato seeds, tomatillo seeds. We're definitely going to get those started today. We got a bunch of peppers. We're going to get some of those started today. I really have gone overboard in the last couple of years with pepper seeds, but I do enjoy peppers, and we put up a lot of peppers this past year. You never know when you're going to have a good year for peppers or not. So I've got some different herb seeds here. We're going to get some of those started as well. So I'll be using the seed tray with 50 pods. You can get them larger or smaller. This is a good size for starting seeds. The 72 seed tray, it just seems really too small. It doesn't have enough space for the roots to truly develop. These work really well and allow you to get enough root development before transplanting. So you'll want to make sure you're getting your seeds started early enough that they have about 6 to 8 weeks in seed trays before you get them outside to harden off for another week or so before you put them in the ground. So this is our mixture of peat moss and potting mix. I've added a little bit of water to it. You'll want it to be moistened going into these little seed pods, because this stuff comes really dehydrated and dry in the bags. Peat moss is notorious for being really initially kind of hydrophobic, where it doesn't want to soak up the water, but once it does get wet, it holds moisture and stays wet. And just keep adding water as you need to get this to the consistency that you want it. Add just a little bit more water to this. All right, so we're going to start putting this mixture into our seed tray. It's very important that you get potting mix, not garden soil or potting soil. You want something that's really fine. I did see this one big twig in there, but pick that out. But you want it to be real fine so that your seeds don't have to fight with big chunks of bark or anything while they're trying to come up. Potting mix is usually designed for starting seeds in. Also, some of them are going to be labeled seed starting mix. Anything along those lines is good. We'll mix up a little bit more. This is my potting mix. I do probably about 3/4 of this and about 1/4 of peat moss. This already has some peat moss in it. I just find that a little extra peat moss in these tiny seed trays helps to hold the moisture better in between watering. We'll get some water added to this. All right, so we got the seed trays filled with the potting mix, and we're ready to start sowing our seeds. Now make sure you label what you plant where, because you won't remember this moving forward. If you're planting one whole tray of something, that's fine. Maybe just label the box you have it sitting in, or one label. But in this case, I'm gonna have several different varieties of tomatoes planted in this seed tray, and probably some peppers as well. We'll see how many we fill up. So what I'm going to do is just on the back of my box, take a Sharpie marker and write down what's in each row, or if there's something in multiple rows, put that in there so I remember what I've planted where. Now I got several packs of some hybrid tomatoes that are supposed to do really well here in the heat. One of these says it has 8 to 10 seeds, and I've sown this first row of 5 cells, and there was only 6 seeds in the pack. So a little disappointed there, and a couple of them didn't look that great. So this was my first time purchasing from Seeds and Such. We'll hope that all of those come up. So I've got some hybrid Better Boys here. They're supposed to do really well here in Alabama, so we'll get these planted as well. What I usually do is use just a little utensil, push the soil back that I've packed in here so that I have a little spot to drop my seed into. Typically, I sow 2 seeds per cell. On the first row, since I only had 6 seeds, or the first row of cells only had 6 seeds, so one of them got 2 and the rest of them just got 1. So this is supposed to be a packet of 25 seeds. I don't believe we're anywhere close to 25, but here goes. I'm going to put 2 seeds in each of these little cells. And it's a little tedious getting these tiny little seeds in there. Okay, so that is 12 seeds, so we might be close to 25 after all with this packet. These are the Better Boys. That first row was something called a hybrid Heat Master. They're supposed to continue producing even into the hot, humid summers when a lot of the tomato plants are only ripening the fruit that they've already set during cooler temperatures. We've got our full tray of tomato seeds in. I labeled behind each area what I planted where, and we're just going to go over this with a very light watering on each little cell. Moving forward with watering your seeds, you just want to water them as needed to prevent the soil from drying out. You don't want them to be soaking wet, but you don't want the soil to be dry and cracking. Usually every 2 days, just depending on the humidity, is good. And just a small little dab in each cell. As the plants get a little bit bigger, they'll require a little bit more water. All right, now we're gonna set this by a window. Once these seeds actually start sprouting and the greenery starts coming up, these will need more intense light than what you'll get next to a window. So at that point, you'll need either some sort of grow light, or if it's warm enough, you can set them outside on your porch during the day and just bring them in at night if it gets cold. But they definitely have to have more sunlight than what they get indirectly by a window. Now, moving on around the table, the next thing on my list are sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes take a long time to form the little stalks that you're going to plant after any risk of frost passes. So late January is a great time to get started with these, just because you're not going to get good start development for a couple of months of these sweet potatoes just sitting in this dirt and starting to bud and sprout. So we'll start with a layer of our potting mix and peat moss. This is just left over from starting my seeds. And we're going to just make a little bed here in the bottom. And I'm going to take, these are sweet potatoes that I saved from what I harvested back in August. I've got the white ones. These are O. Henrys. They did not produce a lot, but I did not have very many of these plants. But after tasting them, these are so delicious. I want as many of these as I can grow this next year. My Beauregards did really well, the orange sweet potatoes, so we're gonna do those again. I did not have a lot of production out of the purple sweet potatoes. I only have one left out of the batch, so we're gonna grow some starts from that and see if it does a little better this year. If it doesn't produce well again this year, we won't grow this again. These produced well on the plants that I had. I just did not have many of these starts that actually survived on and made potatoes. The starts that I got didn't look that great. So we're gonna make our own this year. I only have, this is a little broken off piece, 4 little tiny O. Henrys and 1 larger one. So we're gonna try to get as many starts off of these as we can. All you need to do is put these sweet potatoes on top of this soil. So we know that this particular tray is pretty much going to be all of the O. Henrys. Got a little bit of space there. We're going to put a couple of these small Beauregards. And these are great for growing sweet potato starts. They're not much for eating, but they will grow little sweet potato shoots really well. So do save those when you harvest, because you can get lots of little starts for the following year. So that's good on that one. We're going to take some of this garden soil that are, yeah, I guess it's Miracle-Gro garden soil. It's chunkier than what you would get in the actual potting mix. And we're just gonna put a layer of this over these sweet potatoes. Some people grow sweet potato starts in just a cup of water. If you're growing a lot of starts, this is a better way than trying to suspend your sweet potato in a cup of water. I recommend this for a larger volume of sweet potato starts. And that's good. We're just going to water this. So you'll just lightly water this every few days to keep your soil from drying out. You don't want to drown your sweet potatoes. These actually are in a container that doesn't have holes in the bottom. That works just fine. Just don't overdo the water. Don't water unless the soil dries out on the top, because you're going to have water in the bottom that sweet potato can draw from. This, just like the seed trays, is going to go next to the window, and it will be fine next to the window into the early spring. As your temperatures warm up, you can set it outside during the day, bring it in if it's going to get cold at night. Sweet potatoes do not do well with cold weather. They like hot, humid environments, so just don't let them get hit by a late frost or anything, but certainly you can set them out in the sun once it warms up. So I have these certified seed potatoes, and the difference in certified seed potatoes and just regular potatoes that you would buy from the grocery store is that these are certified disease-free. So you know you're not introducing disease into your garden. Last year I did use some organic store-bought potatoes, but ultimately I felt like the seed potatoes did a little bit better, so that's what we're going with this year. I have Kennebecs and Yukon Golds that we're going to be using this year. And we planted our Irish cobbler potatoes on Valentine's Day last year. We're going to get our potatoes in the ground a couple of weeks earlier this year, just because the potatoes were still in full tuber making stage when I harvested them, because the temperatures had gotten so high here. So once temperatures sustain at 85 degrees or higher for extended periods of time, your potatoes pretty much shut down making tubers. So you can leave them out there, the fire ants will get them, they're not going to do much more. So we really have to harvest potatoes by the end of May here in Alabama, or you're just leaving them out there for no particular reason at that point. So I wanted to get an extra couple of weeks of grow time on my potatoes. Hopefully we won't get any hard frosts that knock them back. They do come back from a frost, and I'm not gonna have such a huge patch that I can't cover them if I need to. So when you get your seed potatoes, do not plant a whole potato like this. You want to cut out your eyes, because this one potato will make a lot of potato plants. You're just gonna cut it up based on where the eyes are on this. So there are multiple here at this end. Some people are more meticulous about this, about getting just the eyes. I try to leave enough of a chunk that will feed the plant until it's able to produce for itself. I'll go ahead and cut this right through here. This one's still very dormant. I don't see a lot of eye formation. There's some. Once you cut up these plants though, these potatoes, you're gonna need to let them seal off. If you just cut this potato up and drop that in the ground to plant it, it would rot. So have you a big cardboard box like this that you can lay them out in and let them seal over and dry before you put them in the ground. And these are Kennebecs that we're doing right now. These have obviously been stored very well. They're not anywhere close to producing little buds or potato plants. The goal on the timeline for getting these potatoes in the ground is going to be next Monday, which is January the 30th. That'll be 2 weeks earlier than when we planted our potatoes last year. And I'm hopeful that with that extra 2 weeks that we'll get a little bit bigger potatoes this year than what we got last year. We got a lot of potatoes last year. I do have the video on that and I'll link to it in this video, but they just weren't as large as I would have liked. And the main thing there is the amount of time they have to develop before it gets really hot here in Alabama. If you're growing more than one type of potato, make sure when you cut them up to have them separate and label your boxes that you have them in so that you know which is which. So this is my Kennebec box. Next I'll do my Yukon Golds, and finally I'll do my Irish Cobblers. All right, so I've spared you the gory details, but I have cut up 20 pounds of seed potatoes. I've got them here in my dining room. We've got Kennebec, 10 pounds, Yukon Gold, 10 pounds, and I'm not sure how much. These were just some of the Irish cobbler potatoes that I had grown in the fall that I've cut up for seed potatoes. That's probably about 1.5 pounds of seed potatoes there, or my own seed potatoes. So these are just going to air dry. You need to let them air dry at least 3 days before planting them. Mine are actually going to air dry for about 5 days before I get them in the ground. So that is it on cutting up seed potatoes. And that wraps up my list for today on everything that I needed to get done for preparation of my spring and summer garden. Hope you enjoyed.